This is the Couples Time Massage Valentine's recap video from the February 16th workshop. And we begin with our partner face up, supine on a mat or on a rug, or this is just a mattress topper from IKEA actually. Kneel in between your partner's ankles. We're going to start with a traditional Thai massage warm-up sequence. Center of the palm compresses at the inner ankle bone. Lean forward to cast pressure downward. Lean back. Second hand position at the arch of the feet. Lean forward and then backward. Third hand position where the ball of the foot meets the inner knuckle of the big toe. Lean forward, externally rotating your partner's hips with each of these compressions, and then backward. Return to second hand position at the inner arch of the foot. Lean backward, and then inner ankle bone, the medial malleolus, that kind of small round ankle bone at the inner aspect of the ankle. And lean back. You can do that sequence 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. 3 times more if you like. You can even do it side to side instead of both at the same time. Once you come back into the ankles, turn your fingers in toward your own thighs and compress heels of your hands into the inner heels of your partner's feet. Lean forward slightly so you can sink straight down. Grounding through the heels. Taking a moment of pause. Lean back to remove pressure and turn your hands forward, blade hands, to compress the inner aspect of your partner's calves. And you can palm walk again, leaning left side, right side, not just heel of hand, but the whole hand, casting weight forward from heel of hand toward your own fingertips, finger pads. You can do both at the same time if that feels right. Up to the inner aspects of the knee, give a moment of pause there, and then palms to the kneecaps, move them around in circles. You can even use fingertips to really find the kneecaps and move them around. Don't be shy here. It feels good, and it's healthy for your partner's knees, for their kneecaps to move well. If the kneecaps can't move and glide well, then the knees themselves can't move and bend well. Okay? So maybe 5 circles, circling out, not in. And now I'm going to continue up the line toward my partner's front hip bones. My palms come to the quads, the front of the thighs, just above the kneecaps, and I'm a little bit out of my reach here, so I'm going to rise up. Shoulders over hands. Be mindful, especially if your partner has worked out recently and their quads are tender. We're going to sink layer by layer. Imagine you're pushing the thigh bones straight down into the earth. You might compress and feel the long bands of the quads shift to the side. All the way up to about the underwear line. And then we're going to confidently place blade hands to just feel where the front hip bones are, okay? So don't do this. Don't feel around with like piano fingers, because that can be really ticklish to the sensitive areas. So feel where they are. Then turn your fingers out to the side, open the thumbs. Front hip bone goes in between thumb and index finger. And I'm just going to lean forward here. There's some muscles and tendons here that attach. And also I'm just grounding back of her pelvis down into the mat. Another moment of pause. Then I lean back to remove pressure. I'm going to palm back down the quads the same way I palmed up. Once I get to the kneecaps, I sink my hips down toward my heels and circle them around. Don't skip the kneecaps. Then blade hands, palm walking or bunny hopping down the inner aspect of the calves toward the inner ankles. Compress just for a moment at the inner heel, then first foot sequence. We're back again. Palms to inner ankle, inner aspect of the inner arch of the foot, where the ball of the foot meets the big toe, and then feather off. Next we came up to the lateral aspect of the leg. So sit facing your partner's outer leg. One foot comes to the outer aspect of the ankle, the other foot comes to the outer aspect of the hip. From here, I internally rotate her leg, turning her toes in as I plant my feet on the outer aspect of her leg, in toward the knee, and then back out toward the hip and ankle. Once I get to the knee, I'm going to hop up above the knee, compressing up and down the lateral aspect of the leg around the IT band. Up and down. If your partner's a runner, this will be particularly helpful. And then up to the outer aspect of the glute or hip, okay? So above this outer hip bone, the greater trochanter, and below the iliac crest of the pelvis. There's some muscles right there, some tendons, and I am going to lock and sink the outer edge of my foot into those muscles. I can even post up on my hands behind me and then use the opposite foot to help that first foot sink even deeper. This is somewhere where you can just lock and sink and hang out, but find at least 3 different spots that you can explore. After you've compressed into the outer glute, I want you to flex your own toes back towards your face and push the ball of the foot into just the aspect just below the outer hip bone so you can prop the glute up. My right foot, the foot that's closer to her foot, is going to stay propping under the glute. My left foot, the second foot, is going to compress, slide into the low back area. So again, above the pelvic bone and below the rib cage. I'm going to lock and sink into these 2 points. More pressure right now is at the low back, and then I just give her body time to release, to let go, to be heavy across the leg, and to allow for any softening in the muscles that's ready to happen. After at least a few breaths here, I'm going to slowly slide my own feet back, letting her hips come down softly. Give a little jostle. And next we're going to move to the inner aspect of the leg. So the hamstrings and adductors. Stand up, come back to the space in between your partner's ankles and flare their leg out to the side. With your hand, initiate a bend in the knee and push the heel up so that their knee is level with their hip. Come to a seated position and bring soles of your own feet to your partner's inner thigh. There's a lot of tension here along this line because her other leg is still winged out to the side. So I'm going to scoop that leg and bring it in toward my hip. My left hip is in line with her right knee, okay? So make sure you're not too far to the side. You want to be right in front of what you're working on. Support at your partner's foot or ankle. And like a cat, like a purring cat needing a pillow, I'm going to push my feet one at a time from the inner aspect of the knee all the way up toward the groin, in toward the groin, and then back out. Maybe 3 times. You can do that warm-up sequence. And then lift the foot and ankle, scoop the outer foot underneath the shin, and bring this outer hand so that forearm is resting on thigh, and outer ankle bone, the lateral malleolus, rests in the palm of your hand. So I've got a vice grip going on here with this foot, and then the inner foot snugs. It's a little like a micro scoop just to get to the hamstrings rather than the inner thigh muscles, though you're accessing both. Opposite hand places at the arch of your partner's foot so you can vice with the feet and then lean back to deepen the pressure. So we've got a lot of moving parts here. I slide my own knee and foot back to move in slightly. It's like we're making footprints in toward the groin and back out. Second foot position. There's one footprint in away from the inner knee. I lock, I vice, I'm like counter pulling with my toes here, and then I lean back lastly to sink into the pressure. Is that okay? The closer you get to the groin, the less effective the lean back leverage is. And so you'll just need to invert your own foot a little bit and use the knife edge of your foot, the pinky toe edge side of the foot, to sink into some compression there. Okay. So in and then back out. Remember, you can lock and sink and hold if you've found a spot that's particularly therapeutic. Once you get back to the knee, assist in the straightening of the leg. Lift it up and place it down next to you, next to their other leg. We moved on from here to a seated position. So, stand up, squat between your partner's ankles, scoop under the outer sides of the ankles, rise up, walk the feet in, initiate bends in your partner's knees by pushing into the back of the knee with your own knee, one at a time. Crisscross applesauce, bring the outer edges of their ankles to the soft part of your shin, okay? So not the sharp part of your shin bone, underneath your knee, this soft part of the shin, the tib anterior muscle. And keep their own knees stacked over their hips. So you don't want them too far in or especially too far back. That's the most common mistake. From here, turn palms up, reach forward, ask your partner to grab onto your wrist like a fireman's grip. We're going to take 3 deep breaths. Make sure you're not super rounded in your back. This is like a squat, okay? So deep breath in. Exhale, stand up, pull your partner forward. Partner receiving, you can tuck your chin at the top. I'm going to push my knees forward and pull my own shoulders back. Inhale to roll down. Exhale, forward. Third time, inhale, roll down. Exhale, forward. And then walk back so your partner lands in a seated position. Once your partner is seated, come to a kneeling position behind them. Guide them into a gentle forward fold just as far as they can go. Arms reach out. Let the head and neck be heavy. Marissa's quite flexible, but if your partner's not, then you could just kneel behind them. You know, so if her spine were up here, let's rise out of it a little bit. So if your partner's tight and they're right here, we're actually going to start at the thighs. So plant one foot, doesn't matter which one, just framing your partner. Compress heel of hand close to the hip crease, sink straight down. Second hand position at the mid-thigh, sink straight down. Third hand position close to the knees. Return to the second hand position mid-thigh, and then return to the first hand position at the hip crease, pushing straight down into the thigh bones. Now, imagine your partner is pretty tight, and you know, I've worked on people, some people are like right here. You can let your chin tuck, they're like right here. So kneel behind them and just gently guide their back forward. But Marissa, you can go ahead and sink all the way down. I'm going to show you the sequence to help make some space at the cross lines of the back. So from here, I'm in a more lifted position. My fingers turn back toward the earth. I ground heels of hands just above the pelvic bones, or even just at the pelvic bones. And now I'm going to draw my hands apart. One hand stays grounded at the back of the pelvis. Other hand comes to the low back. It's like a diagonal line, creating space, just a gentle downward compression. Second hand, or the second hand position is slightly up, so at the middle of the back of the rib cage on the opposite side of the spine. Third hand position just inside the shoulder blade. Return to the second hand position below the shoulder blade, opposite side of the spine at the rib cage. And then first hand position right at the muscles of the low back. Switch hands, same thing, other side. Remember, it's this lengthening of the hands away from one another. One hand stays rooted, second hand lengthens opposite direction. Second hand position is at the rib cage below the shoulder blade. Third hand position right next to the shoulder blade. Return to the second hand position, and then to the first. Partner receiving, crawl your hands in, rise up to a more lifted seated position. Partner giving, stand so that you're facing away from your partner so that your outer leg is in line with their spine. So my feet are planted, I've got a wide stance. Partner receiving, interlace your fingers, bring your hands behind your head. Just check that they can lean back against your leg here. So you can bring the back of your chest, relax your chest even more. There you go. So she's chilling here. I'm chilling here. I'm turning so that I face her, but again, my feet are pointed away from her. Close the elbows in toward one another, open them up, and then lean back and relax the shoulders, chest, armpits. Do this at least 3 times. I'm going to scoop my back foot back a little bit for a wider stance. You can either, partner giving, you can either lean back to encourage this opening, or depending on what's more comfortable for you, given the dynamic dimensions of your own body and your partner's, you can lean your chest forward and push your partner's elbows back. Rissa's quite open here, so she doesn't really need this. Let's release arms down wherever they're most comfortable. Sit up tall. Push top of the head into my hand. I'm going to switch my position so that I'm standing, framing her back. When I bend my knees, and I'm actually going to bring her back very slightly, good. When I bend my knees, my inner knees touch her outer shoulders, just lightly, so that she could lean back against me if she wanted, but I'm not pushing her forward. That's not a fun position for the partner receiving, okay? So make sure they're not leaning back too far. You want them to be stacked. From here, you can guide your partner's hair out of the way if they have long hair to expose the shoulders. I'm going to lengthen my own hips back so that when I bend my knees, I can compress straight down into the tops of her shoulders, out toward the outer edges, and back in. And then we did, some people call this PNF, some people call this MET. It's a contraction stretch cycle. So Marissa, shrug your shoulders up into my hands. Partner that's giving, really resist this shrug here. And now relax. Partner giving, let up a little bit and then guide the shoulders down. Move the hands outwards, shrug shoulders up into my hands, shrug, shrug, shrug. And then release. Let up so they can release and then guide the stretch. One more time, shrug shoulders up into my hands, shrug, shrug, shrug. And then release and guide the stretch down. We're resetting the resting length of the muscle in that contraction stretch cycle. After you've worked on both shoulders, and again, it's good to do that after you work one shoulder at a time in the next way that I'm about to show you. Scoop the hair to the side, come down into a kneeling lunge, drape the arm, the shoulder over the leg that's kneeling, and you can just let this arm play dead. Depending on your height dimensions, you might stay kneeling. If the partner's shoulder's up like this, then scoot your foot forward until it can drape, okay? Guide partner's head in the opposite direction. I'm going to use the same forearm as the arm that's draped, so it's her left arm that's draped, it's my left forearm I'm using. The other hand I'm going to just rest on her opposite shoulder for support. And I guide my proximal fifth of my forearm, the fifth of my forearm that's closest to my elbow, but not the pointy part of the elbow and not the wrist. I'm just going to lock and sink straight down into the tissue. If there's a height disparity and you're like trying to compress up here, then tuck the back toes, lift the back knee, drop the back heel in like a warrior one stance, and then compress where your shoulders are over your forearm. Okay. The other thing you can do here is bring the other hand, the other forearm, to the same side as the forearm that you're working on, the same side of the shoulder, interlace the fingers, compress with the same forearm, so my left forearm, and then guide the head and neck into a stretch in the opposite direction. So we lock straight down, in my case to the left forearm, and then I open my elbows up just to increase some range of motion. It makes this a very dynamic massage assisted range of motion experience that is quintessential to Thai massage. After you're done, remove forearms, guide the arm back down to your partner's side, do the other side, and then stand back up and close with the standing compressions to both shoulders. That's all we did for the Valentine's Couples Massage January 16th sequence. Thank you for watching.